So, hello everyone. Welcome to, from wherever you're watching, to the first ever GeoHUG webinar series. I'm Jessica Keys from Prospectors and CoreSafe, and I'm the virtual host today. So for those who aren't aware, Prospectors is your one-stop shop for all of your geology gear, along with our flagship product, our CoreSafe core trees. We designed these with help from Newcrest, North Parks Mine, and the Group. So next up, we've got Adam McKinnon from Aurelia Metals. He's here to talk about the Dominion and Federation discoveries in New South Wales. So thank you, Adam. Really excited about your talk today. I'll spotlight you. There we go.
Thank you. I'll just see if I can get the slides up. All right. Share. Can everyone see that? Okay, so this is now for something completely different, as they say. I'm going to talk today about some discoveries that my company, Aurelia Metals, has made over the last 2 years. I'm going to go through it fairly quickly. If anyone's got any questions, specific questions, just feel free to get into contact with me later or in the questions. But yeah, I think it's a really good story, and I hope everyone enjoys it. So the area that I'm talking about is the Cobar Basin. The Cobar Basin's a prolific mining area in New South Wales, located around 500 kilometres to the west of Sydney. My company, Aurelia, AMI, has 2 operating mines, one just to the south of Cobar and one just to the south of a small town of Nymagee. The Dominion and Federation discoveries sit just south again of the Hera mine, which is currently operating. So most of the deposits in the Cobar Basin sit on the eastern edge, and if we look at sort of a schematic cross-section through the eastern edge of the Cobar Basin, we can see there's actually some very large deposits, some world-class deposits. The whole area, especially the CSA mine, but Cobar Goldfield as well, have produced a lot of gold and a lot of base metals. Previously, Hera was the further south in that trend. It was discovered in the year 2000. We can now add these new discoveries, Dominion and Federation, a little bit further south again. So I'm not going to put too much of this stuff up, but what we see here is a simplified geology map of the area. Hera mine is located 5 kilometres thereabouts south of Nymagee, and then 10 kilometres further south again we come to this area, Federation and Dominion. The area is hosted in Devonian age metasediments, and the Federation deposit is actually quite close to a non-conformable contact with the Rimmer granite, which is Silurian age. And then off to the east, we have the Rookery Fault, which it forms the basin margin with the basement Girolambone group of Ordovician age. Nearly all the deposits in the area are structurally controlled. I've just got this here basically to show, like almost all deposits that are found these days, the areas generally have had a fair bit of previous exploration, and it's often in the 4th or 5th iteration that a major discovery is actually made. The reason the area's got the Dominion prospect got its name, it was first looked at by Dominion Mining in 1993. So, you know, we're talking 27 years ago when the area was first identified. The interesting thing is various people have done work since then. YTC Resources in particular actually did a fair bit of drilling almost on top of Dominion and definitely on top of Federation. They put close to 3,000 metres of drilling on these into these deposits and failed to hit any of the high grade. And I'm going to expand on that a little bit in a second. So what I'm going to be talking about, where our story starts, is really in July 2018, less than 2 years ago. So this is the discovery outcrop area. It really does not look like much at all. What we're seeing there is we're looking up uphill of a small, locally prominent rise. You'll note that there's the white ant's nest off to the right-hand side of the image there, and the discovery outcrop really sat directly adjacent to that white ant's nest. It was actually discovered by a Aurelia geologist whose name, I think he's actually online, Michael Thompson. He was down there doing a little bit of prospecting, and he actually walked over the Gosselin, picked it up, cracked it open, and saw some visible gold in that Gosselin. For those that don't know what a Gosselin is, it's just a ferruginous outcrop of a potential ore body. So a really interesting thing about this hill, nearly all of the hills in the Cobar region have been explored very heavily by the old timers. On this particular hill, as far as we know, there's not a single prospecting pit or scratching indicating previous exploration. YTC had actually discovered Gosselin further to the north, and which is part of the reason they did the drilling here. But that particular Gosselin didn't have any gold in it. So what we did initially, is we actually hand excavated the Gosselin. The idea of that was just to try and get some orientations on the Gosselin structure, and also to take some samples of the Gosselin. So this is why we were so excited. You can see that the Gosselin is actually shot through with visible, quite nuggety visible gold. For those that aren't aware, it's actually quite uncommon these days to find outcrop with that much gold in them. So whenever a geologist sees that kind of thing, they tend to get pretty excited. As I said, we using shovels and mattocks, we excavated three geologists actually spent some time hand excavating the Gosselin, try and get some structural information. And we also took a whole lot of samples. Note the termite mound there. We actually sampled the termite mound as well, just to see how much, what sort of anomalies it might have in it as well. And there it is. You can see there's some extremely high grade gold in some of those samples, up to 682 grams per tonne, or around quite a few ounces, 22 ounces to the tonne. The whole lot averaged around 55 grams per tonne, so, or nearly 2 ounces to the tonne. The termite mound also had a significant amount of gold, 0.2 ppm or 200 ppb, which was yeah, quite interesting as well. So the interesting thing about this, and I mentioned before that there had been a fair bit of drilling. I've got here a map showing the 8 drill holes that YTC had actually put into this area, and it actually looks like they've tested the target. The drill holes actually passed through our interpreted trend for the deposit. So when we were looking at this, we thought, well, potentially the deposit actually dips back to the east, and maybe these holes have actually missed the mineralisation. So this was the concept. These are not real drill holes. This was before we started. We had a concept that maybe these old historic holes had missed the trend, and that if we came back and drilled scissor holes back the other way, we might discover, we might be able to chase that high grade gold down in the sequence. So initially, the board of Aurelia decided it was a good idea to drill some holes, and we got some money. Initially, we drilled 15 holes. And the very first hole, we only stepped back around 16 metres from the Gosselin, and we intercepted it. And it might be a little bit hard to see on the screen, but there's the Gosselin there, 2 metres at 2.6% lead zinc, 0.4 copper and 0.3 gold. So as we kept drilling, we very quickly realised that the mineralised zone was much more extensive and much more complex than we first thought. We hit some very large oxide mineralisation zones to the point where we're talking close to intersections of close to 100 metres in length. The mineralogy there, as you'd expect, in the oxide zone, mostly carbonates and oxides, and some secondary copper sulfides as well. All of that, of course, makes for some very excited geologists. We're actually pretty much standing very close to where the Gosselin was discovered. The site obviously there looks quite a bit different with drill rigs and clearing. This is the person who discovered the outcrop, Michael Thompson. It's the reason why we're in the area in the first place. So, as you can see, very complicated. I won't go into this in great detail. I'll just point out some of these intercepts here. 97 metres at 1% copper and 2.4% lead zinc, basically from 30 metres down. And also some narrower high grade, 11 metres at 18.7% lead zinc, 5 metres at 4.7% copper. Now, we have done some more drilling there since. We've since hit some sulfide mineralisation. The key thing for us though is we didn't hit the high grade gold that we saw at surface at depth, which was a real shame, but it got us into the area. This is why we're in the area. It still remains open in multiple directions, along strike, and also at depth, and we're still planning to do some follow-up work there. So this discovery, while we were drilling, we also commenced an IP, induced polarization survey. It covered an area of around 5 square kilometres and included the Dominion and previously identified Federation prospect. We actually got some really strong chargeable responses. One of them, of course, was at the area we'd just drilled. Another was at the Federation prospect, and this other one off to the north of Dominion. Now, just for reference, when we did this IP survey, there were none of these blue holes had been drilled. So we only had these grey holes. Note the grey holes is the old YTC drilling that only hit low grade, didn't hit any massive mineralisation. All these holes in here came later. And this led us on to the Federation discovery. This was in around between March and April last year. So almost exactly 12 months ago, Federation was discovered. What you can see, that there was this historic lead anomaly over the top of the deposit. And that actually matches fairly well with the mineralisation that we finally discovered. There's this strong chargeability anomaly, almost in the same orientation, and then this core of very strong conductivity. It produced a very attractive target for initial drill testing. Our first program was 8 RC holes. 6 of those RC holes came back with high-grade mineralisation, and you can see the sort of grades we're talking about there. The best of them, 5 metres at 22.6% lead zinc, and some gold as well. So that obviously got everyone even more excited, and this is where we have basically concentrated ever since. This really looks like a potential, a regionally and state significant discovery, I would say, in my own biased opinion. So this is the first diamond hole we drilled that had serious high grade mineralisation. The brown mineral there is sphalerite, or a low iron version of sphalerite, which is a zinc mineral. And it's quite often hosted with this very strongly black chlorite gang, quite brecciated, but we do get vein style mineralisation as well. So this is the red holes there were our original program, our first program, and then these were the follow-up diamond holes that we put in probably around 9 months ago now, so getting towards the end of last year. You can see very quickly we had pushed the mineralisation down past 600 metres below surface. So, I mean, that made us quite excited as well. Possibly most significantly about this deposit is that the massive mineralisation actually contains visible gold. As most people here would know, having gold in a base metal system makes a huge difference to the economics. It's a little bit hard to see for those who don't know what we're looking about, so we put a red circle around it so you can actually see the gold. We also get this a little bit of copper mineralisation in the deposit as well, but that's fairly typical. This actually looks a lot like the Hera mineralisation off to the north. So moving on to right now, these images are from an announcement we put out 2 weeks ago. Effectively, in the 12 months since discovery, we've drilled more than 70 holes and more than 20,000 metres total. Mineralisation now extends down to at least 600 metres below the surface, and it's over 1/2 kilometre in strike length. Probably most significantly, we've discovered this high-grade area off to the northeast. And the other thing we've done is that we've done some flotation test work, which indicates extremely good recoveries from that flotation work. So this is from the ASX announcement we put out 2 weeks ago. A long section. This is the northeastern area. So this is a new area again that was discovered late last year, around December last year. If for those who are familiar with these type of deposits, there's some absolutely cracking intercepts in there. When we turn it around and look along strike, you can see it holds together as a steep sort of system. Some of these intercepts are amongst the highest announced anywhere in Australia this year. This one in particular, 18.6 metres at 49.2% lead zinc, so nearly 50% metal. And this other one up here that actually has some gold as well, 15.4 metres at 47% lead zinc and 10.7 gold. So yeah, really, really cracking high-grade intercepts. It remains open along strike and at depth, and we're still exploring. We're actively exploring it as we speak. So where do we go from here? So as I said, we're still drilling, and the plan is to have a maiden JORC-compliant resource by the middle of the year. Metallurgical test work and mining studies are additional metallurgical test work, I should say, and mining studies are about to commence. We are also looking at environmental heritage baseline work in the next quarter, and we're also looking at expanding the IP coverage because we know it works for seeing these deposits in the area. And I'll just finish with some conclusions. I guess just a few of the key ones. My real takeaway from this is that luck or serendipity actually plays a really important role in exploration. If our senior geologists there hadn't have been down in that area and stumbled across that visible gold in that outcrop, we probably wouldn't have been in that area right now. And who knows how long it might have been before that was discovered. The other thing, of course, field reconnaissance is still highly useful. Getting out and having a look at the rocks, having a look at the area. You're not really going to make a discovery sitting at your computer, unfortunately. This is a very, people who've worked in the Cobar Basin, this is actually quite interesting that a lot of these deposits, and in fact most of them in the Cobar Basin, actually sit on the western side of a hill. Now that sounds pretty unscientific, but it has actually been used in the past to target ore bodies. Using scissor holes where possible, that's obvious. Both of these discoveries were near misses previously. And the last one is that where there's smoke, there's often fire. So over 27 years, various companies and explorers had seen that there was quite a bit of lead, zinc and gold mineralisation there. They gave it a good crack, but it wasn't until we actually came back and drilled it quite heavily that we made the discoveries. So in other words, don't get discouraged. And that's it. Thank you.
Love it. Thank you so much. I have had a couple of questions coming through. Just checking. Can you hear me okay now?
Would you like me to stop the share?
Yeah, that would be great. So we've got one from David Ward. So I'm just going to allow him to talk, and here we go. Unmute. Can you hear us, David?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yep. Fire away.
So I'm just interested in the surface expression of these things, Adam, because obviously that's what interests the rest of us explorers. So the aerial photo that you showed, there was a really significant contrast between where the drilling rigs were, just the colour-wise.
Yep.
Where the drilling rigs were opposed to the standard red dirt you see everywhere else. Does that represent anything? That white ground? Yeah.
I think it could potentially be related to retrograde alteration, but I think it's more likely that both of these areas have almost a very either outcrop or subcrop, and there's not much chance for a lateritic profile to actually develop on the sides of the hill. So when you do crack the surface, you're cracking weathered rock rather than necessarily a soil profile.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you. Next up, I've seen one coming in from Glenn Dimer. I'll just throw him on now.
Hi, Glenn.
Unmute. Hi, Glenn. Can you hear us?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yep.
Great. It's just such an incredible couple of years you guys have had up there, Adam. When that huge northeast IP target, just north of Dominion and northeast of Federation, what do you call that, and what do you make of that, and when are you going to drill it?
It was very uncreative. It's called Dominion Northeast. We have, as you saw on the image there, we have actually put some holes in there. We're still looking at that area. We have hit some very low grade mineralization, some pyrrhotite, but we're still looking at that area.
Beautiful, thanks.
Thanks. And one more from Rod Sainty. Here we go. Where's Rod? Here we go, on mute. Hi, Rod, how you going? You might, there we go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there we are.
Okay. Adam, thanks for the talk. It was very interesting indeed. I'm interested about, again, the discovery, the outcrop, and then about the orientation that you've found through drilling. I'll start with that one first. Obviously, that's a bit of a surprise. This shallow plunge, are you saying, well, that was a plan view that you showed us.
Mm-hmm.
But you're suggesting that it was, well, the initial concept, which was very reasonable.
Yep.
That the mineralisation, the previous drilling hadn't tested, the holes weren't long enough. They hadn't intersected the load.
Yes.
So how do you reconcile that in retrospect now?
In two ways. The controls are still quite ambiguous. So we know from Federation that the ore body is actually striking nearly east-west. So drilling a line of drill holes north-south is definitely not an ideal orientation to test something that's potentially east-west. We do see, when we did some further drilling, and I don't have the slide in here, but we did notice that we were getting this east-west orientation. But it's also probably fairly structurally messed up. It's not a simple linear or planar structure. It really does seem to be chopped up quite significantly, which is probably causing some complications as well. Overlay that on the fact that a lot of the mineralisation, or the higher grade mineralisation, is also potentially being upgraded at the base of oxidation, which may have been giving that shallow plunge.
Okay, very interesting. And just going back to the original outcrop discovery, I mean, it's on a rise. I'm just surprised it wasn't discovered before. It's on a rise. Mm-hmm. It's Gosselin, contains visible gold and mobs of it, and it's in the immediate area of the previous drilling.
Indeed.
What can you say?
All right, so
was there any geological mapping done before?
Yeah, there was a little bit of geological mapping. So as I mentioned before, YTC had actually discovered Gosselin on the same hill, further to the north. We traced the Gosselin over about a couple of 100 metres. But I think the key point is that the gold-bearing bit, the other Gosselin that we traced, and we assayed it, of course, actually was fairly low-grade gold. It was only in that that one spot that we were getting that really high-grade gold, and maybe that's what that was missed in the past.
Right. Is gold a common associate with Gosselins of the Cobar Basin?
Yes, it is. Gold's a common associated of the ore bodies just in general. The thing is that even if we just step up to Hera off to the north, we know that the gold can be in these very, very short strike length, very steeply plunging bodies. So they can be very easy to miss.
Got it. Okay. Anyway, Adam, congratulations.
Thank you.
And congratulations to Michael for finding the thing.
Yeah.
Cheerio.
Thanks, Rod. Okay, well, thank you so much, Adam. That was really, really great talk. And